Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Communications and Conversations. We are doing the next video in the series of videos that we've been doing, which has been dedicated to hotspot usages, and we've been talking about hotspots past couple of weeks. Last week's episode, we talked about looking at the Pi-Star software, and today we are going to continue on that chitty chatty. We're talking about WPSD. So a little bit of a different change up there. Some people like Pi-Star, some people like PSD. You know, it's kind of a Ford Chevy, left Twix, right Twix thing, those kind of things. So we figured we'd go ahead and do the second one. And we can almost argue and almost say it is our salute to hotspots. So that's kind of what we're talking about here. And, hotspots, we've kind of talked about last episode, even the one before that, kind of love-hate kind of thing. People like them and stuff. And as we said, when you have a hotspot, you have some great responsibility that you need to do with these devices. And that's why we went over last week with Pi-Star and the setup and doing calibration. This week, we're going to be doing the same thing, but we're going to be using the OS of WPSD. So if you didn't watch any of the last episodes, kind of a quick recap here. Remember, 2 episodes ago, we talked about finding a clean frequency and non-interfering frequency with using your hotspot on there. Remember, they can only put out maybe 10 to 20 milliwatts if you're doing a all-in-one kind of device on there. But if you have devices that are actually running an MMDVM board that actually might be running higher power, you definitely need clean frequencies on there to use, or non-interfering causing frequencies. And in addition, these, you don't really want to amplify them. You don't really want to, add on external antennas. But let's say you have some devices that you made, like I've made a few that actually are using 5-watt radios, 10-watt radios, those kind of things. So definitely keep that in your mind there. And the other thing, too, we're talking about is there's a difference. There's a thing with a hotspot that there is the hardware, which is going to be like your Raspberry Pi type device, whatever that may be, or if you're using something else on there. And then it's going to be the actual modem board. So the MMDVM modem board, if you're using a Zoom spot, whatever, something that actually does the RF and does the digital voice encoding, decoding on there. But those two physically put together make up your hardware. The software then is going to be running on the device, and then that software is, in essence, WPSD or Pi-Star, which we're going to talk a little bit about later here. So without further ado, we're going to get into it in a moment here, but just before we do, let's go ahead and talk to our sponsor, or about our sponsor, which is JJK Communications. JJK Communications is a proud sponsor and supporter of Communications and Conversations. We don't ask for money from any of our viewers, any of our listeners, anything like that whatsoever. We basically are saying, listen here, we are here to do this show as a level of education. We're not going to do unboxing videos. We're not going to do, get it fully in opinions. We want this to be a core of education type show for you, and that's why we do this show. But in order to be able to do that, we do sometimes need funding or help. We need to buy the cool little toys that we may have, or work with some of the radios that JJK Communication has to offer. They are a two-way radio sales service provider, consultation group, everything you could think of underneath the sun that you would need for a two-way radio company. That's all I can really say. They offer their JJK Connect system, which is a large area coverage two-way radio, actual two-way radio network. We're not talking about push-to-talk. We're talking about a two-way radio network on there. And if you need wide area coverage, such as, coast to coast, family communications, then they do offer the option of actual push-to-talk radios. That's kind of what's up, over here. There we go. In that picture right there, that is a push-to-talk cellular device on there. And they offer good push-to-talk cellular devices. They don't have any of these devices that, work in every storm and this and no. POC devices use cellular networks, and if you have a device that is set up on the correct cellular network and working properly, you will have uninterrupted communications. But the best thing about JJK Communications, they don't want to just sell you the radio and push you on your way. No, they want to sell you the radio, and they want to be able to help you with that radio, whether it's programming, technical support, or even yet education. That's right. JJK Communications offers education on there. In addition, to top it all that on there, they offer two-way radio rentals. That's right, two-way radio rentals. They were just telling me a story about a family that went and was going with their daughter's wedding. And where they were having it was in a remote, beautiful area, kind of down by the beach, but they had to go down like a little bit of a cliff or a walkway on there and everything. And guess what happened? They had no cell phone coverage. What did they do? They contacted JJK Communications. Says, listen, here's the deal. We got a wedding. We need to coordinate with this and everything like that on there. We don't have cell phones. Can't use cell phones. As a matter of fact, they didn't even want to use cell phones. That's why they kind of chose the place, was because it had no cell phone coverage, so people couldn't be on during the wedding. I'm like, that kind of thing or that jazz. So they contacted JJK Communications. They said, you know what? Hey, we got a solution for you. We'll let you rent our two-way radios. And then they had beautiful, flawless communications for a beautiful point and event in their life. That's right. Hit up JJK Communications. Check them out on the website, at their website, www.jjkcom.com. That's www.jjkcom.com. All righty. So we're going to dive right into the hotspot here thing again today. Once again, we're working with WPSD. So there are going to be some differences between Pi-Star and WPSD. Once again, as we said last week, it's subjective versus objective. What you like is what you got to go with, hands down. If you don't like Pi-Star, but you like WPSD, then do that. If you don't like WPSD and like Pi-Star, then do that. Both have a different kind of interface. Both have a different kind of feel for it. WPSD offers maybe a thing or two differently than what Pi-Star does, and it's more so on the DMR side, but we'll kind of cover all that in just a minute there. So I'm going to pull up my screen here with my WPSD dashboard here. So once again, I kind of did some pre-configuration because otherwise it would take too long. Last video went over an hour. I apologize. Hopefully we're not going to go this long here. But what we got here is we have the dashboard of WPSD for, of course, N9 UPC, which is mine here. And we're going to take a quick round robin like we did in the last one. So starting out kind of on the top there, you have your, in my case, it's a blue status bar. You have profiles on there, you have appearance, you have live caller, you have sys info, and you have admin. Those are the main kind of function buttons like Pi-Star has in there. So profiles, the neat thing about WPSD is they have a little bit of an easier system to access profiles on. So what you can do is you can easily create and saying, listen, I have a profile when I'm operating Fusion. I have a profile when I'm operating DMR. Or maybe if you don't operate across different modes, maybe it'd be my like, well, I have a profile when I want to use Fusion and connect to the YCS313 server versus when I have a Fusion profile that I want to connect to YSF 31551, okay? Or DMR. Maybe I want to connect to the Amcom network on the Chicago server, but then I want a profile to connect over to maybe a different DMR network, or maybe connect to a different server of the same DMR network. Those are what those profiles are going to go ahead and be. The appearance kind of changes the look and feel of the dashboard. That's kind of really what it is. And remember, when we looked at the Pi-Star dashboard last week and we looked at the WPSD dashboard here, this is actually through a computer browser. So what I'm doing here, just as a reminder, my device is sitting in my home here on my local network, and my computer is going to there. You have live caller information. So the last caller that happened, you can kind of put that up. It will pop that up on the screen to get some more information about them. You have the system info, which we'll kind of cover here a little bit. And then you have your administrative pages, which is going to get you into your configurations for like Wi-Fi and just overall general configurations. Now, below that, we have kind of that sort of a status bar as we had on Pi-Star. And in this case, we have a radio status, which is idle. Right now, the radio isn't transmitting or receiving. And we have the TX frequency was selected. So we use the same one again. We're using 4489625. That's the one that we choose to use. And if you take a look then, the radio mode is going to be simplex. We have the modem port on there because sometimes you can have modems connected in different ways. You have the modem speed, so it shows what's connecting. The TXCO frequency of the device. So once again, kind of important on there. Remember I said last one, if we see that TXCO frequency, we know that it's working. And then the modem type. Once again, I'm just using the Zoom Spot modem on there. It's a single simplex, I should say, kind of MMDVM board made by Zoom Spot. It is a Pi hat type configuration on there. So if I take this here and kind of lift it up and show you, you can kind of see as I take a drink here that here, let me go back to the other page here. Let me kind of flip it over here a little bit. So as you see, there is the Raspberry Pi there. There is, let me turn it this way here and maybe even show you a little bit better. There is the Zoom Spot board that's on there, and then that allows you to, that's the hardware on there, and that's what this is reading. That's the Zoom Spot I'm using, which is the single Zoom Spot Simplex version 1.61. Sorry about that. Had to take a drink. So with that, that tells you that whole series and things across the top of the board there. We'll go back up to the screen here now. Now, starting on the left-hand side, very similar to the Pi-Star, we have the modes enabled on the left-hand side. So as you see in this one, we have D-Star, DMR, YSF, P25, NextDen, and POXAG. Not as many as what's listed on the Pi-Star, but doesn't mean that this is any less ability to do it. On the network status, you have connections that show status like to a D-Star network, DMR network, YSF network, P25 network, NextDen network, POXAG network, and APRS network on there. Now, this one is set up as my default right now. So as you see there, it is highlighted for YSF as mode enabled, and the network is going to be YSF network. Now we have a YSF status, which showing linked, and so right now it's currently on. It's a public access one that we have on there, and then it is linked to that US AMCOM YCS 313. Now, once again, much like the Pi-Star, if you were in last week, you'll see there's gateway activity and there's local RF activity. Remember, the gateway activity is the activity of the gateway from what the hotspot is sending down to the connected networks. The local RF activity is what is happening when I'm going from my radio to the device. So keep those in mind, because that's the difference on there. You might see, you might be like, well, I'm showing gateway activity, but I'm showing RF activity. Well, that's because the gateway is, once again, that server connection using the internet. The RF is doing what it does, RF. Now, up kind of above there, you kind of see it says hide chunks and then caller details. I have caller details turned on. And what that caller details is going to do is that when someone is talking, whether it's me or whether I'm receiving traffic down the network to my device that's going to be transmitted out from my hotspot, it will show you the name and the information of the person that is talking. Some people like that. Some people want to see a little bit more information on there. I turned it on just to kind of play with it. And to hide chunks, the hiding the chunks is really when people could do a quick key and they don't say anything or do anything, boom, that's what ends up happening there. That's the chunking that takes place. Now, along the top, we said we have profiles, appearance, live caller, assist info, and admin. I'm going to click on the admin tab. And then when it takes you to the admin tab, if you're following online with the YouTube video, you'll see that local RF gateway lines have been replaced, and it's been kind of now given quick keys on there. So what these quick keys are is stuff that is configured and turned on for what you are doing with your your hotspot. So in other words, there's a YSF manager. That's the network to the YSF. So if I click on that one that's blue, the ones that are grayed out, you can't click on because those networks or something is not active. Well, if we have the YSF manager, guess what? Yaesu System Fusion is active on the mode on there. Now, what that does is that pops up this YSF Link Manager box. And what this is kind of cool on the WPSD, which Pi-Star doesn't sort of have, is that with this, you can instantly quickly select a reflector. So it's going to tell you what you can select from. It's going to show you what you currently are linked to, and then you can link and unlink. So I could unlink from the current AMCOM YCS 313 reflector or server, and then I could do a drop down on there. So here's what I'm going to do. So right now I'm currently linked to the US AMCOM YSF 02035, which is the YCS 313. I'm going to click unlink here. Now I just did that, and what's going to happen with that unlink is that I'm going to drop out of that network. And well, excuse me, I clicked unlink, but I have to click execute action. Sorry, because you can link and unlink. Now, here's what happened. Boom, it's dropping out, and now I'm in standby mode because I'm not linked. So if you look at kind of the partial dashboard that's showing there where it used to say link to the AMCOM server, it's not showing that anymore because I'm not linked to anything. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, let's see what I want to do. Here, I'll do I'll do this. I will go to my other YSF reflector, 31551. So I'm going to scroll down to that on there. You can also enter it if you want to with the numbers on there to search there, but I was already scrolling there. So now I'm going to highlight YSF 31551, which is a US due now reflector. Selected as a reflector, currently linked. It says not linked. I'm going to change it from unlinked to link and click execute action. Boom, boom. It's going to connect me. It's transmitting and saying, hey, here's the deal. Now I'm linked to that YSF reflector. And if you look at the lower left corner under that YSF status linked, it says US due now. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the AMCOM network because that's my favorite one that I have on there. I'm going to click link. And now once I click link, I'm going to go and change it. Boom, boom, boom. And now I'm back on the AMCOM server. Now, you don't have to unlink and then link. You can just, if you have it up there, did you want to link, boom, you can. That's kind of cool on there. And if you notice underneath the YSF link manager, when you're in there, you'll see it says list of YSF reflectors, list of FCS reflectors. So there you go. You have that ability to take a look kind of at a quick list there instead of doing that drop down. All right, I'm going to click. I'm going to go back to System Manager this time. And now when I'm clicking System Manager, now I can choose to add or stop a service. So I can choose about firewalls, the watchdog, remote control if I want to. If I go to Instant Mode Manager, I can choose a different mode. Once again, if I have the modes enabled, I can switch between DMR and YSF and P25 just on the reflector dashboard. And if I really want to go to the main admin page, I click main admin page again. Now, once I'm at the main admin page, once again, the boxes are there for selecting. Or if we go up, we're going to see a different thing now. We're going to see, it says dashboard along the top. Okay. We're going to see dashboard, log viewer, power, advanced, WPSD update, Wi-Fi, and configuration. Now, Wi-Fi is in a separate category. Unlike Pi-Star, which was all on that kind of configuration page, Wi-Fi is its own category. It's very similar. We'll click into Wi-Fi real quick just to kind of show you there. But it shows the ones that are active at the top, shows your regional Wi-Fi settings that you would use, shows you the Wi-Fi management. If you have an import, if you create your own connection profile, which you can create on your own, and it tells you what you're connected to and what state you're connected into, and then what the traffic is going on there. So right now, my raw packets, I have 10,904. My received packets is about 2.8 megabytes. My transmit has been like 14.19 megabytes on there. So just kind of gives you that quick kind of look overall of what Wi-Fi is doing there. Now I'm going to click into configuration because that's where we want to do. So even if you go back to the dashboard, you're on the dashboard, click admin, and then click configuration on there. You're in there, and we're going to, if you notice, it's kind of very, very similar-ish to what the Pi-Star had on there. So the host name in this case is going to be WPSD. That's what's going to show up if you don't know the IP address, but you know this is connected to your Wi-Fi network. This is something you can actually type like WPSD.local or WPSD.local / to get it there if you don't know the IP address of the one device. My node call sign, pretty simple. It's your call sign. The DMR CCS7 ID, which we've talked about before, so your DMR ID, you put it in there. But notice right away, cool thing about WPSD, it links and knows what your next den ID is. So I have a next den ID. So once I put in 3155156, it knew my next den ID was 55156. So therefore, boom, we're good to go on that part there. So radio mode, once again, we talked about simplex or duplex. Alrighty. Duplex requires dual hat or duplex modems. So little bit of a change from what we talked about before with the half duplex. Doesn't mean you can't do it, but if you're using a simplex node, use a simplex node on here. The radio modem type, once again, we're using technically the Zoom Spot single band Raspberry Pi hat with GPIO, general purpose in and out, or general purpose in and out. That is what we're using. But once again, if we go and take a look from that drop down menu, here we see a whole bunch of them, whole bunch of them. And then from there, just the same amount are on there. Now, here's the other part too. is that if you notice, they do copy a lot of the same DVM boards, and it even has a generic one. So if you do chance to use a generic one, you can. There's the modem port. You don't need to technically really set this on there. The other one was more of a drop down on the Pi-Star, but this one here is just that modem port on there. Modem baud rate, you usually don't have to change. System time zone and dashboard language. Once again, something that you can set on there. Now, the time format is going to be 24 hours on there. So take a look at that on the screen up there. It's going to be 24 hours is what I choose. You can choose 12 hours. That is definitely up to you, but it will kind of impact your time on there for logging purposes. And I say that because I've had a few people that have changed it. They changed the logs back, and they kind of got confused. There was some confusion on there. So just something to keep in mind up there. Now, interesting enough, if you make a change, there's no apply changes to the sections as we had on Pi-Star, right? Okay, so here's what we're doing. We're going to do this. We're going to let's just say, for example, I'm changing from English US to English UK. Boom, right away at the top, it says update current profile with these settings. You can check it, yes or no, check or uncheck. Apply changes or cancel and revert changes. So if you ever need to, you change it back there. We're going to cancel that and revert back to it. That means, hey, I made a change. It's saying you got to accept the changes, man. And do you apply the changes? And you have to either hit the green button, yes or no. In this case, with WPSD, you can make multiple changes and then push the button to change it all on there. Next thing is going to be node location and info settings. So once again, want to put your GPS coordinates in there, feel free to do so. And then once again, show the node on the WPSD user map. This is a little bit of a change, okay? So on there is a WPSD user map. I'm going to pull it up here, and it's kind of interesting, some of the data around here that's kind of on there. We're going to click into it here a little bit. We're going to go to by Minneapolis where I'm at here. We're going to click in a little bit more. So I got some in Lionel Lakes on there. Here we got one. Do we got one in Eau Claire? Yeah, we got one in Eau Claire. That's a digital voice mode on there. Let's see what they have on there. So they're using a Zoom spot also too. YSF, yeah, kind of some interesting data on there. But yeah, it's kind of interesting on this data and stuff out there. Some people like to do that. I mean, if I really want to, I can do that myself. So let me go ahead and close this out here. Let me go and open this back up here. So if I wanted to, you know, I could put my, you know, auto populate coordinates in there. So there I did that. There's my coordinates where I'm at here. And I'm going to actually display it. So let's do this. We applied some changes on here. I made a change, and voila, here's what's happening. It's going ahead and updating it. On the modem screen here, well, here, let me go back to this here. On the modem screen, it's a stopped MMDVM inactive because it's doing that. Services are stopped. So it's going to start popping up here in 1 second again here as this page reloads. So let's give it a second or two here to reload. And once again, if you have your browser up, you don't close your browser or anything like that, it's going to come back to it. Alrighty, now it's starting WPSD again. While it's doing that, let's go here and let's take a look if I pop up on the map here. Shall we see that here? Let's see if I do that here. Oh, nothing yet. Okay, maybe I got to use it here real quick. Let me use it here real quick. Let me see here. N9 UPC testing 1 2 3 4 5 test only, no response required. All right, let's see if it does that there. Maybe it might do it a little bit later here. Let me refresh. Let me do that here one time. Nope, still nothing there yet. Don't worry about it. We'll come back to it later. Maybe check on there if you have WPSD, and let me know if you ever see me on there. Okay, so we have that on there. So I'm going to show us on the map there. Here I put in my my village where I live on there. Country, here I'll just change it to United States. Once again, started typing in there, made some change on there. And then here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that once again. I'm going to put in my server 3103.amcom.network on there. And then if I wanted to do APRS gateway, which I'm not, I don't do it on there. So therefore, I don't really want to do that. I'm going to leave that off on there. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to make changes. So I did make some changes here. I'm not going to click apply changes yet, but I'm going to go here and we're going to go down to the radio MMDVM host modem configuration. So in this case, we have Yaesu System Fusion selected as the mode. Look at it, 2 seconds, 5 seconds. Keep that in mind on there. And then you still has the cross mode. So it didn't say it on there, but it still has a cross mode. So no need to worry about that in any way, shape, or form. Right below it, other MMDVM modem options is that if you wanted to do CWID, you can on there. My display I have for this device I'm using is a Nexten with enhanced with drivers attached to the modem because it's plugged into the modem. It's going on the modem board. There's a layout type. You could change the layout a little bit if you want to on there. And then idle brightness level on there, you can change it to how bright it actually is for you. Now, going to go to the network here. Remember, we set this network already, YCS313. If I want to change it here, I could do the drop down. Here's the YCS network option. So in this case, I put in the parameters of DGID 55. So the whole point of that is to basically have it set up that DGID 55 is going to be the primary one where it's always going to kind of sit and listen to it on there. Have that Wires X pass-through turned on, not connected to any YSF net or FCS networks, any uppercase host files, not doing that. We'll get to the DGID gateway in just a minute here. Once again, node access control now. Let's talk about that real quick. So I kind of have it sort of like a little bit of a whitelist for my my hotspot here. Allows me and basically no one else to go ahead and connect to it. Here's some firewall connections, so just keep those in mind if you're doing it. I do have it set up that, once again, it's an auto access point. So if for some reason it can't see the internet of what the networks are stored into it for Wi-Fi, that kind of connection on there, not the other networks on there, then it will go ahead and do that. And then auto updates diagnostic, it's set for there. So that way it's always going to make sure it's updated. And if there's problems, it can report the diagnostic. So now I'm going to go ahead and here and click apply changes. It's applying changes. It's stopping the modem on there. Updating the OS. Takes a little bit here. So notice that it's taking a little bit of a long while because I made multiple changes. When it makes multiple changes, it has to kind of do that. So if you don't want it to take so long to do these changes, this is where you get done with that section and then boom, go ahead and do it again on there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the dashboard. We got this all set up here. We got it all nice here and everything. And here's some like leftover traffic from WPSD. So we'll go let it reset here in a moment here. But the biggest thing that we're going to take a look at here is we're going to see YSF is that check mark mode on there. YSF network, yes, on there. And then it's the US AMCOM network on there. So still showing some leftover and residual stuff here. This gets back to like what I talked about with Pi-Star. Unplug it. And I just unplugged it here. And I'm going to plug it back in. In the meantime, if I go and try to do a force refresh of the screen, we'll click this here, refresh the screen, and it's probably going to error out because, yep, there's nothing there. The Pi-Star hasn't started back up yet. So we're going to give it a second here for it to start up. I'm looking at it here. Right now on the screen it says WPSD booting. Please wait. And sometimes this is a lot of it's waiting. But once you get this thing set up, it's pretty darn easy. It really is. It really is. Now, let me talk a little bit here about the DGID gateway since we're talking about it. So what the DGID is unique, obviously, to Yaesu System Fusion. What you can actually do within the DGID network thing is you can have it set up that when you select a DGID on your radio, okay, so the actual radio itself, alrighty, you can create a table that it does or connects to a certain reflector or does somewhat of a certain function. So it's almost like sending commands without actually sending commands. So that is what the DGID gateway is. It does take a little bit to set up, so just keep that in mind. But it is relatively awesome on what it can really do. And a little too much involved for just this episode because we're giving that kind of 10,000-foot view of the survey software on there. So we'll maybe cover that a little bit later. So now I'm going to take my handheld here and we're going to key up. I'm going to key up on the frequency. And we should see gateway activity because we're right now, if we check on there, left-hand side, YSF is selected, YSF network is selected, public, and the link is US AMCOM. So we're going to key up real quick. And 9 UPC testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No response required. Once again, no response required. So now what's changed on our screen? Well, now we have the current last caller details, which is up there, which of course was me. I'm from Baldwin, Wisconsin. I was using YSF and DGID 55. The gateway activity here. This is what is happening. It's receiving me, and it's going down to DGID 55. The local RF activity is happening here, and it is going down to the network there. Now, if you notice the local RF activity here, it's hanging out here, and it's going to go 29 seconds, 31 seconds. So it kind of is keeping a kind of a timer of what's kind of been going on there. Now, remember I said call details. If I click that, look at that. My call sign goes away, but if I click it back, it goes ahead and shows the people there. So you got this hide chunks thing here when you're turning that on and off. It basically is going to stop any sort of people from like keying up real quick and then unkeying and kind of going along those lines. So kind of a neat little function that's on there. So now we have that set up on there. Cool, great, grand. What's next, John? Well, as you notice, it was a little bit easier maybe than a Pi-Star, but it's hard to say. But now let's go back into admin and let's go into configuration. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do two things. We're going to transfer over or change it over to DMR. So what do we do? Well, we look up at the screen here and squint my eyes because I have a little bit of a glare from my lights here. We're going to do DMR mode on. YSF mode is going to be off. I got 2 seconds and 5 seconds. Now, here's the big thing about the DMR with is different than the Pi-Star. So this one is DMR mode. I don't want to use Brandmeister. I want to use the AMCOM network, which is going to be under this grouping of DMR plus, free DMR, ADN, HB Link network on there. This is definitely going to be a time that you want to save it first. So I'm going to click Apply Changes. So I just changed it from Yaesu System Fusion to DMR, and I put the network as going to be DMR plus, free DN, ADN networks on there. So big difference between the two networks, or multiple networks, I should say. Taking a look here. Waiting for it to update. Now, when it changes modes, yeah, sometimes that's a little bit of a big pill it's got to swallow. But here we are. Frequency still the same and everything like this. But now as we go down, we see DMR mode's active. But look at what we got going on down here right now. Even though I said, and see, I don't know why it's doing that. Let's try it again here. See, sometimes you gotta be a little careful on there because it kind of gets weird and goofy. Once again, it's the software. I might be weird and goofy. Who knows? Who knows on there? But what's going to happen is that it's going to pop up with the different networks that you can select from or that you can choose from. Brandmeister is one of them. AMCOM is one of them. There's free DMR. There's all these other different ones out there. So we're going to scroll here past this part. So now it says, there you go, DMR plus, free DMR, ADN, HB Link. Now we're going to go down to here. So under DMR configuration notes, this is the new one down there. Brandmeister we're going to leave alone. It's not going to be enabled. Down here is where we're going to enable it. So what I'm going to do here is under DMR master, I'm actually going to type in AMCOM. So AMCOMM. And I'm going to go to Chicago because that's the one. So it's actually listed as FD underscore AMCOM underscore Chicago. That's the network I'm going to be under. That option, once again, I'm going to turn it on so that in time slot 2 will always bring me talk group 31551. Other, I don't want to do quotations here. There we go. And now that ESID, remember I said this was the hotspot, so I'm going to use 91 because the other one I used is 90. Could I use the same one again? Yeah, I could have, but I didn't. Now, you got to enable the network, okay? You got to enable the network. If I don't enable it, it's not going to connect to any DMR network. Notice that it says apply changes here. But I want to go ahead and show you real quick here. Notice how on here they have use talk group, use 9 talk group prefix, use 2 talk group prefix. So one of the interesting things about WPSD I'll talk about was rebooting is that you can have two networks running, two DMR networks running at the same time. The caveat is you have to have the talk group, because could there be the same talk group across both networks? Yes. Could they have the same talk group and all? I mean, can it have settings and everything that if you would key up, it would go out to both? Yes. So what the WPSD is doing is really kind of per se offering as a filtering service on there. And the way they say to filter it is, I'm going to scroll down here. It's that if I wanted to use Brandmeister and I wanted to use these here, this is the primary one. But if I wanted to use Brandmeister, what I'd have to do then is I'd have to enable this network. And upon enabling this network, then what would happen is I would have to put a prefix of 2 in front of it. So if I wanted to go to 31551, I would put 2, and then I got to put some zeros to fill it in. But, excuse me, what's happening here now is you can see that. So you can go to other DMR networks. So you can go like System X DMR network, another custom DMR network, TGIF, XLX, all these kind of things like that on there. And you could do all these. You could have all these on, but you just have to put these numbers in front of it. All righty. I use Amcom 1 because, once again, I'm sort of biased, sort of jaded on there because I own an Amcom server, but I feel it's easier the way we have the server set up. Now, once you've gone through all of those on there, you're going to get down to the general DMR settings on there. I don't know why it's not right away afterwards, but it isn't. But in this case, this is where you're going to select your color code, and then this is where you're going to have your DMR dump or your DMR embedded LCO, LC only channels, those kind of things like that. That's on there. And then I'm just going to finish it out. We talked about the private network versus semi-private. So I've made my DMR changes. Now I'm going to save them. And once we get done with this saving, we're going to jump out and go to the dashboard and then see if we actually work on DMR. And the answer will be yes. All righty. Come on. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Sometimes, once again, this writing takes a long time, but it doesn't. All right, we're back at the screen. I'm going to click on dashboard. And now we're going to check a few things. While it's kind of still booting up on my display on my hotspot, it says starting WPSD, because we see right now the DMR is red, DMR network is red. Oh, now they went green. Now we're good to go. So just like we want to do a DMR, we got to wake up the network here. We're going to do a quick little, well, we're going to turn on the radio first. That's a fatal flaw, by the way, of the radio. We're going to turn it on here real quick, and we're just going to take and give it a quick little key up, make the connection to the network. And now that we made the connection to the network, let's go ahead and key up and actually talk on it. And 9 UPC, testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, test only. And as you see there, it went down the network on there. So it is communicating with the network. It has no problems on there. We're in essence, we're good to go. We're golden. Now, let's do this. Let's go ahead and talk about the calibration. The calibration is important, just like the last one on here. So we're going to click on admin, and in the upper right corner, we're going to click on, we're going to go to advanced. So we're not going to click on configuration. We're going to click on advanced. And then under here, you have some tools, okay? And under the tools section at the top, you're going to go MMDVM host calibration. And if you notice, wow, this looks really, really familiar. Wonder where this was from. Well, it was from, obviously, the other one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this back because I was playing with it for some other things on there. I'm going to change it actually back to 0 on there. We can get it to work here. Whoop, sorry. Got to click start, and then in this case, got to click DMR. I forget to do it. See? You got to click start. You got to click DMR. Now I can make changes. There you go. And I'm going to run this all the way back. About one more there. I'll go down to 50. Okay. And now we're going to save it. And now we're going to key up on our DMR radio. So I'm going to key up on my DMR radio. And oof. Look at that. That bit error rate is up to, it's above 4. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to go down and I'm going to do differently. I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to do by negative 50. Now I just dropped it down to negative 150. And it looks like it improved greatly. but going to go down to negative 250. And once more, going to go down to 350. And it's leveling off pretty good. Consistently like 0.3, 0.5 on there. Let's just try one more. Let's go 320. Let's go 25. Let's go 375. How's it doing there? Still not too bad. Here, let's go 100, or excuse me, 400. Okay, I think I'm going to lock it in at 400. Voila, locked it in. Now I'm going to actually stop this because now one of the things I want to do is I want to go and I want to do the same test, but I'm going to, whoop, as I knock my radio over. I want to do the same test, but I want to do my fusion radio now. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on. And remember, we had about an average of 0.32. So now I'm going to click Start. This time I'm going to click Fusion. Remember, we're not going over the air. We're not going over the air. I mean, we are locally, but we're not going like down a network or something. So we're green. Now I'm going to key up here. Oh, pretty good. That's pretty good on there. Yeah. All right, I'll take it. I'll take it on there. So now we know that it's good for Fusion as well. We'll click Save Offset 2 just to be on the safe side. We know we're good for Fusion and DMR. So we did that calibration test, and it's, boom, it's good to go on there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back out of the configuration here. We're back, I should say, the calibration now into configuration. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a reboot on the stuff here. So reason I'm doing the reboot on this here is you get done with the calibration, it's good to reset the whole thing to make it a little bit better here. So we're going to do a quick reboot here. And then once we do that, and this, we're going to go ahead and show and make sure it's all still working. And we'll go back to the dual mode configuration where it's going to be Fusion and DMR like we did at the end of Pi-Star on there. All right. All right, taking a little bit of a reboot. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes it happens. And it's not uncommon. It really is not uncommon. This is the longest part. All right, there we go. Now we're back up to the dashboard. Now, as you see, as things are booting up still, take a look at that. We only have DMR active and the DMR network active. Let's go back into admin real quick in configuration here. And we're just going to go ahead and throw on that YSF mode on there. We're going to apply those changes since it's booting up here. And then we're going to double check our network. Remember to check our network. Remember, you turn on and off a mode, especially on. Go ahead and make sure that you are checking your networks to make sure that's correct. I've seen many people, unfortunately, accidentally turn on a mode, but they don't check the network. Okay. So once again, we're waiting on there. Remember, we turned on a network, so we're adding another mode. So it's kind of like, take a deep breath. Okay, so here we go. We have Yaesu System Fusion. We have DMR on. We have the set at 2 minutes for RF, or excuse me, 2 seconds for RF, 5 seconds for there. That's the right DMR network. Now look at it. See here is we got actually 2 up here. So we have the Fusion network on there. I have the Wires X pass-through on. We'll cancel that, revert back there. Because it's still good on there. It's good there. Chicago, they're still good. We're good there. Let's go back to the dashboard and let's see if we did anything worthwhile here. So now if we take a look at this left-hand side of the modes enables, we see Fusion and DMR. The network status is going to be YSF network and DMR network. Time slot 2 is on. Public, semi-public with the DMR status. Color code 10, and that's the ID. The DMR master is Amcom Chicago, and for YSF, it is linked to the US Amcom network. So let's go ahead and do it. So I'm going to start out with Fusion here real quick. Remember, always give a quick little key up real quick, just to make sure that you're receiving and to make sure that you keyed up your network. So here we go. N9 UPC, test 1, 2, 3, no response required. N9 UPC only. Alrighty. So we did that. Standby upper left corner there. You see it's a standby Yaesu System Fusion network.
W0 SUN not responding.
So we have some people that actually go ahead and come in and do that. And they hear you on the network there. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to come in now and we're going to actually do it on DMR here. Ready? So we're going to key up. We're going to give that quick key up real quick to key the network and go boom on there. And then and 9 UPC testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 testing DMR. No response required. Alrighty, and as you saw on there, the DMR side went along and keyed up on there. And now, also look what we have differently here with on the screen here. We have this thing that we could say is display talk group names on there. So we can do that on there. If I toggle that off, look at it on there. It changes on there. Talk group name display is disabled. But if you click it on, sometimes people like that. Once again, that's a preference up to you. But as you see, now we have both networks running. Right now we're sitting idle, so all we have to do is pick up, and we're going to be good to go. And then you could start talking from that point on there. So this was your little bit of kind of not Pi-Star education, WPSD, as we did Pi-Star last week. But you know what? You know what really bends my antenna? Alrighty, for this week's What Really Bends My Antenna is, in essence, wrapping up about hotspots to go ahead and saying that it is not true radio technology. And I'm going to say foo-foo on you, okay, as putting it nicely, because guess what? It is true radio technology. Just because you use the internet to link RF components together does not mean that it is not the true internet. It is the true internet. And in this case, we're using a device, okay? So we're using a radio, right? Radio's here to talk to a device, which then connects to the network. All righty? So what does that all exactly mean? Well, it means that it's still communicating via RF, but it just happens to link to other stuff via the internet. And if I ask you, when people say, well, in that case, digital voice, that's not true. That's the internet. That's there. I'm going to ask you this. Do you use a linked repeater system? And most of the time when people, kind of say this, oh, yeah. Well, guess what? If you use a linked repeater system, it's probably linking via the internet. And guess what? It's also using the internet. So guess what? You're in that same boat on there. Well, but it's analog. It's not digital. That doesn't make a hill of beans whatsoever. So in that case, in that situation, I call BS on that argument. All righty. Just because you use a means of linking, which is the internet, to do it, then that's fine. Now, we have people that will pop around and saying like, well, if the internet goes down, you lose connection. Yeah. So my local connection, yeah. But that doesn't mean that this radio that has like thousands of channels can't have me go ahead and go click, click, click. Oh, look at that. I'm on my local repeater. Now I'm talking in wide area coverage. All righty. It's that case. And here's the thing. The internet does not go down. Your access to the internet goes down. So in other words, if I'm at home here, and let's say, because there's construction going on in my neighborhood, a construction truck comes through and it cuts, because they're doing some tree stuff here, it cuts one of the roots, which happens to cut one of the fiber optic cables. Does that mean everybody in the world is without internet? No, it does not. What it means is that access that I have to the internet that I'm currently using is no longer available. That doesn't mean necessarily my cell phone's down. That doesn't mean that other internet in my neighborhood isn't down, okay? My access to the internet is down. All right? So I just tell people that, and I say that because they got to really think about that. They have to be able to do that. They really do. So that is really kind of, in essence, what really bends my antenna is people just, once again, think that this is not the true internet. And guess what? It is the true internet, and it does go ahead and work in that regards. So that's it for today's episode of Communications and Conversations. I want to thank everybody for joining me today. Not as long as last week, because we got a lot of the stuff out of the way. Yeah, we did make references to Pi-Star, but I think this is a really good compare and contrast type show to do. Do this. Let me know what you think. I didn't really have anybody say too much about Pi-Star in either way, but hey, throw it in the comments if you're looking at this on the Facebook thing on there. Just say, hey, I like WPSD versus Pi-Star, and tell me why you do or why you don't. So until then, everybody, I want everybody to take care, stay safe, and let's chat on the radio sometime.